Hello viewers, welcome to English for my world. Well, we all have sweet memories. We also have bitter memories in our life. To recollect the past memories, we always use different kinds of expressions. We traverse down the memory lane, walk down the memory lane. We get into a nostalgia. So nostalgia is nothing but walking down the memory lane. So this session is all about how to narrate a past event or how to narrate a particular situation that happened in the past. Here we go. We have a person who is talking about his experience, and these two are cousins. One is Naresh and the other is Madhavi. They both went to an exhibition. So Naresh is talking about the past event that happened in an exhibition. Naresh says, I went to an exhibition with my cousin Madhavi. Madhavi loves giant wheel. So she wanted to enjoy giant wheel in the exhibition. Though I was afraid of giant wheel because of the heights, because of the speed, and especially when it comes down, the fear that I have, I wanted to show off, and I said I also wanted to enjoy giant wheel with my cousin Madhavi. We both sat in the seat and the giant wheel started moving. As in the first and second round there was no problem, but maybe in the third round, as the speed picked up, I started shouting. I started crying, yelling, saying, stop, stop, stop. The reason is, when the giant wheel went up, I had no issues, but when it was coming down, I felt like I was dying. I was falling into a valley. It was very frightening, and it was such a kind of very, very terrifying and very, very frightening experience. So I started crying and yelling to stop the giant wheel. The technician who was running the wheel observed all my woes, stopped the wheel, asked me to get down, and started running the giant wheel again. So this is a past event in the life of Naresh along with his cousin Madhavi. In all these steps of narration or explanation, he was using lots of past tense forms of the verbs by saying we went, and it was very terrifying, it was very frightening. I wanted to share, I wanted to also enjoy. So all these are past tense forms of the verbs, and it is always recollecting the past or trying to narrate whatever happened in the past. Right. So if this is one event or if this is one situation which requires lots of these verbs, let us also look at something else, a very funny event, a very funny example, where police received a phone call at around 2 a.m. in the morning, and the phone call was about yelling of a female, of a woman, crying, I will definitely kill you. These were the the sounds that their neighbors heard, and these neighbors rang up the police. The police stepped into the picture, and when they actually went there to see what happened, they were surprised. There was no lady there in the house, it was only a man. And on further investigation, they came to know that this man was afraid of spider and spider webs. So whenever he looks at spiders and spider webs, he starts shouting, I'll kill you, because he was afraid. He was very irritated and afraid, most importantly, whenever he looks at spiders and spider webs. So that made this man shout at the top of his voice by saying, I'll kill you. at that hour, at the wee hours, at the small hours, and at the early hours of the day. Very funny, isn't it? So this is also a kind of narration. That means you can talk about a story, because whenever a story is narrated, a story is started like long, long ago or once upon a time. There is also a wonderful hymn that says, long time ago in Bethlehem. Okay, and it goes on. Mary's boy child, Jesus Christ, was born in Bethlehem. So long time ago, he was born in Bethlehem. So all the narration goes with the help of these past tense forms of the verbs. So you can also talk about your life's events, your past experiences, your sweet memories and bitter memories by using lots of these past tense forms of the verbs. Great, wonderful. So if these are the two examples that I wanted to share with you about narrating the past or explaining the past, I have also another wonderful example, a wonderful anecdote to give you. And that is, for instance, when you are talking about maybe your childhood memories, maybe your college days or school days, because usually people say those days we had a lot of fun. You know, we climbed trees, we played in the open fields, we never sat in front of computers, you know, just playing video games all the time. So we had all the fun. We played in the open fields, we played with all our friends. Most of the time those families were joint families, they were not nuclear families, right? So the joint families, there were brothers, sisters, father, mother, wife, kids, everybody living under one roof. There was a lot of sharing of responsibilities, okay, different responsibilities being done by different family members. It was fun, it was healthy living, and the family bond those days were very strong. But whereas nowadays the family bonds are very weak, because we don't see those joint families nowadays. We all see the nuclear families, maybe a wife and a husband and his two kids living under one roof. And probably these days people are very selfish. Those days they were very generous. They were very, you know, plain at heart. There wasn't much jealousy there. The people had the helping nature, loving and affectionate nature, you know, supporting, strengthening each other, gel well with others. There wasn't the kind of, you know, the bad blood that runs now. Those days it was not the case. So likewise, you can also talk about, you know, your childhood memories, your school days, your college days, those beautiful days that are gone forever, that will never return, that will never come back. Right. So that's how you can use these past tense forms of the verbs in explaining, in recalling, recollecting the past events, the past you know, memories, beautiful memories. Let me write some of those expressions and phrases for you for your easy understanding, and to enable you to recollect them whenever you want to use maybe in your spoken communication or written communication. Because I have given 2-3 examples so far. Let me mention them on the board for your easy understanding. Right. So I said it is nostalgia. What is nostalgia? It is walking down the memory lane. Walking down the memory lane. So this is all narrating, of course. It comes under the main heading, that is narrating. And I've used words when I gave you the first example of the exhibition where Naresh went along with his cousin Madhavi. We used expressions such as I was terrified. I was frightened because when the wheel was coming down, it was very frightening. It was very, frightening and terrifying. So I started shouting. I started yelling. So yelling or shouting is, when you are not happy at something, or you can also use the word, I started shouting. When do you shout? This shout is out of fear, to stop the wheel, to permit me to get down. And words such as, so was terrified, started shouting. It was a very frightening experience. In the meantime, okay, soon after that, after the first, second rounds, the wheel picked up speed. So it picked up speed. What picked up speed? The giant wheel picked up the speed. And that was very frightening. I could not sit there. So I shouted at the top of my voice. I started shouting at the top of my voice so that they would understand my problem and they would stop the wheel for me. So that's about one example that I gave you, and these are some of the language expressions that you can learn from that situation, from that context. And in the second one that I said, we spoke about a very funny incident where a man was afraid of the spider webs. So there was a phone call, the police entered the scene. After the investigation, after speaking to the person, they came to know that he was afraid of the spider webs. He was very much afraid of the spiders. So he started shouting. And eventually, at the end, at last, the police, they bursted into laughter. So they laughed to their heart's content. It was a very funny thing. A man afraid of spiders and spider webs was so funny for the police to come to know. All right? They bursted into laughter. They laughed to their heart's content. Maybe even this expression you may remember. We bursted into laughter. And it was all like we laughed to our heart's content, to our heart's content. So these are some of the expressions that you can remember out of this context, and use them on your own when you apply, when you actually you use them in your regular communication. And at the same time, when I spoke about a person talking about his school days, college days, we used words such as we played in the open fields. We never played in front of a computer or in a computer. We played. So all verbs in the past tense. We climbed trees. It was fun. It was all fun. We had a lot of fun. Right? People were affectionate, loving. They were not very selfish. They were affectionate. They were loving. Okay? There was a lot of, we used to care for each other. Care for each other. There was a lot of sharing and caring. So, sharing and caring. Unlike these days where people don't open up. So if you observe carefully, in all these phrases I have used the verbs in past tense. Used, were affectionate, was fun, climbed trees, played in the open fields. So those days was such kind of days where there was a lot of sharing and caring, and people cared for each other. They helped each other. They supported and strengthened each other. They were not selfish. They were very, generous. They were open. These are some of the expressions which you can remember. Well, narrating can also be done in simple present tense. For instance, when you are narrating a movie to a friend which you watched last night, what sort of words do you use? Do you say hero came, hero fought with the gangsters? Do you say hero saved the heroine? No. You use the verbs such as hero appears, he fights with the gangsters, he saves the heroine, he drives the car at high speed. So all this is also narration, narrating something that happened in the past. So a story can be narrated. These days the art of storytelling is completely vanishing, is disappearing. We don't have grandmas who narrate stories. We always have the computer games, WhatsApps, Facebooks, Twitters and chats, completely filled with the social media. No personal interaction and no personal communication, face-to-face interaction. Right. So now that we have seen all this, let us also look at some of the common mistakes that are committed while narrating the past. What sort of common errors are committed while narrating the past? Let us see some of them. So what are the common mistakes? But before that, what sort of linkers or connecting words that are used to narrate the past? You can say initially. Initially. When you say initially, in the beginning, for example, as people say once upon a time, long ago, once upon a time, that is about maybe narrating a story. But when you talk about a common past event, you begin with in the beginning. When I started my career there, it was all very, very good. It was wonderful. But later on, gradually, or say later on, there were problems, and the problems were so difficult that I had no solution to those problems. So eventually, at last, I resigned my job. So at last, or say eventually. When you say eventually, at the end, I resigned my job. I had to quit my job. So in a series, in a sequence, we use these connecting words to say initially, meaning in the beginning, when I actually started it, gradually, over a period of time, and later on also is used in the same context, at last. So that means when we say at last, there is also something in the middle that happened. Finally, eventually or at last, both can be used to talk about, to narrate about a past event or past experience. Right. There are also other words that are used here. For example, soon after. Soon after our boss took over, the scheme collapsed. The project came to an end. As soon as she took over, meaning the meaning of taking over here is taking the charge as the head of the department or as the chief of the department, the project collapsed, the scheme collapsed. So therefore can also be a wonderful linker or connecting word that can be used. We lost our hopes. We were all very discouraged. We were living with a hope that the project would run. However is again another linker, connecting word. So these are all conjunctions. They connect words. They also help in arranging the sentences in a sequence. Maybe while narrating a story, narrating an event, narrating a situation, a past experience, in all these things. So these words help in arranging the sentences in a logical sequence or in a chronological sequence. When we say chronological sequence, according to time. Like first this, then in a sequence, in a series. So therefore we lost our hopes, we lost our interest, we were completely dejected, discouraged, depressed. However, though this project collapsed, we had the opportunity of another project. Another client, he came forward offering us a different project which was much more interesting when compared to the previous project, much more challenging, much more interesting when compared to the previous project. So these are some of the linkers or time references that one should keep in mind while narrating the past. There are other things such as moreover. Moreover. So when you say moreover, in addition to that, besides that, furthermore, meaning it is something like where can we use the word moreover in the past or while narrating the past? The job was first of all very hectic. It was very hectic. Moreover, there were several politics in the department. On one hand, the workload was very high. The workload was very tiresome. Moreover, in addition to that, furthermore, besides that. So all these are synonyms. Besides that, furthermore, moreover, in addition to that, there were several politics in the department. So it was a very difficult place to survive. So I thought of actually saying goodbye to the place, and I joined some other office. So these are some of the useful references, phrases and expressions, especially to arrange them in a sequence or in an order. Now, the other mistakes that are possible while talking about the past, year before last. In fact, we talked about this in the previous sessions too, but when you use this expression, it has to be year before last, just like day before yesterday. Just like day before yesterday, we have to also use the phrase as year before last. It is not last before year. Some of the users by mistake, they pronounce this as last before year, last before week, last before month. Wrong. Then what is right? Year before last. For example, if this year is 2018, if I am referring to 2016, I should say the year before last. That means I am not talking about 2017, I am referring to pointing to 2016. When I say month before last, imagine this is January. If I am referring to November, then I say the month before last or the week before last. So that's the correct usage. Similarly, people always commit this mistake of using present perfect tense in the place of past tense. For instance, for example, I saw the movie yesterday. In fact, even this we discussed in the previous sessions. In spite of that, recalling is always important and necessary. So the more we practice, the more we recall, the better, so that we can remember and use it confidently and successfully. I saw the movie yesterday. For this expression, people use the word I have seen the movie yesterday. I have seen the movie yesterday. Well, this is wrong and this is right. when you are talking about a particular time in the past, that is yesterday, you should always use the verb in past tense, not in present perfect tense, that is I have seen. It's always I saw and it is never I have seen. Right? Remember this and use this in your day-to-day interaction. So now that we have used and we have discussed several things about the past, several examples and phrases and expressions about the past, is there any significant and important in terms of expression? Well, and that is, always remember to mention the verbs in the past, and always take the help of the connecting words or conjunctions so that your communication is natural, crispier, and very, very effective when you present yourself. So viewers, thank you very much for watching the program. I hope all that we discussed about narration or narrating the past has been useful and resourceful to all of you. Thank you.